It's hard to explain just how impactful TikTok is in our modern culture. I could describe TikTok as a video hosting service owned by Chinese company ByteDance featuring short-form user-generated content, but that feels like it's leaving something out. TikTok is more than just an app that people use. It's an entire culture, or more accurately, thousands of cultures and subcultures, all existing separately and simultaneously, yet bleeding into one another, a network of networks whose influence is impossible to describe completely. Last year, it overtook Google as the most popular website in the world, and in a 2020 letter to its shareholders, Netflix described its biggest competitor not as Hulu or Disney Plus, but TikTok. The app is a juggernaut of entertainment and information, making it incredibly powerful. For the past few years, the app has been behind viral dance crazes, dangerous challenges, the spread of critical information, the spread of mis and disinformation, careers and entertainment for a lucky few who've managed to find success on the platform, and even a place for the marginalized in society to find community. But none of that is what sets it apart from the other internet media titans that came before it: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc. What sets it apart is its algorithm. People talk about the TikTok algorithm, or just the algorithm, capital A, like a kind of god or an omnipotent monarch residing over everyone and surveilling our behavior, mainly because it's scary good at determining exactly what you want to watch. Here's what's really going on. The system that decides what videos appear on your main video feed, your For You page, is 100% driven by a really intelligent algorithm. You can follow individual creators on TikTok, and there's a separate tab for seeing videos just from the people that you curate, but there's no perusing thumbnails or reading descriptions of things you might want to watch. Only consumption. This is to get you to engage with as many videos as possible, since the more you view, like, comment on, save, and share the videos you watch on TikTok, the more that the creator of the video benefits, since metrics help the video get pushed out to more people, the more you benefit by seeing similar content in your feed in the future, and the more that TikTok benefits, since your engagement is data that can be sold to advertisers for profit. Conversely, if you make videos on TikTok, the algorithm decides who gets shown your videos. It can either send it to a lot of people and make you go viral, or it can show it to no one, and usually even if you have a few thousand followers, that's no guarantee that any more than a few hundred people will see your video. You have to play the game a little bit, making videos that play well into the algorithm, videos that encourage comments, shares, or duets and stitches. More on that later. If you've been on the internet for a while, you may have noticed that other social media apps used to just show you people you follow. But now, because it's been proven to be incredibly profitable, nearly all of your apps, from Twitter to Instagram and more, use their own recommendation algorithm to decide what to show you, rather than showing you a chronological feed of your friends' posts. Much to the bemoanment of many an influencer, there's been a power shift in this transition from social media to recommendation media. And it's not just a problem of who's able to get famous now. Another defining characteristic of TikTok and recommendation media in general is an algorithm-based content moderation system, which can review videos, reduce the likelihood of a video being seen, or even take down videos based on the content found within them, all without any human intervention. Like any respectable app, TikTok has community guidelines that, if violated too often, can get someone banned from the app. Standard stuff, but the aspect I want to focus on in this episode is content suppression. Something I see every day as a trans person who mostly uses the app to engage with trans political discourse is algorithmic bias. In an era of overt transphobia and transphobic policies by the hands of politicians and media pundits, trans people live and die by the strength of our social networks, and it's more important than ever that trans people are able to have our voices heard. So, TikTok, an app where anybody from anywhere has the chance to go viral and get millions of views, has become a great tool for marginalized voices to be heard, at least in theory. The thing about TikTok's algorithm, which you probably guessed from the title of this episode, is that it unfairly discriminates against trans creators, especially ones who make overtly political content. This can look like trans creators with hundreds of thousands or even millions of followers getting only a few thousand views on their videos, or trans creators having tons of views on their funnier, more apolitical videos, but almost no views on their more political content. Or worse, it can look like trans people getting hate mobbed by conservatives or having their accounts banned entirely for doing absolutely nothing wrong. What's going on here? How big of a problem is algorithmic bias against trans people on TikTok? If content suppression is a thing, is it even worth it to try to make artistic, educational, or political content on this app that millions of people use every day? And furthermore, what does it mean for the trans community when a lot of our relationships happen in cyberspace rather than meat space, which is what perpetually online people like me call the real world? I've been a TikTok creator for just over a year now, and like most people, I'm constantly reevaluating my relationship to social media. Specifically for me, being a trans content creator who makes political and Trans 101 style videos can be a therapeutic experience, but also it can be a pretty disillusioning experience. On one hand, you get to live your life publicly as a trans person, inspire other trans people, educate cisgender people, and perhaps accrue some capital along the way. On the other hand, you catch a lot of online hate, and it can often feel like nothing is changing despite the fact that you're pumping out video after video debunking the same transphobic talking points, of which there are generally about 5 used over and over again ad nauseum. Big picture, what does it mean to make content about your own oppression? What does it feel like to market yourself around your marginalized identity? And can TikTok be a place for trans people to come together and hash out our intra-community issues? To find out, I talked to 5 incredible trans creators about their experiences making content on TikTok. My hope is that by telling their stories, we can demonstrate that the way TikTok is designed is inherently and incredibly transphobic. And worse, that the trend toward algorithmic-based media might be ripping our community apart. Welcome, dear viewer, to Rule 63, the show where we advance trans discourse beyond the Trans 101 to understand the complexities of systemic oppression around gender issues. So, without further ado, my name is Anna Marie, PhD, and welcome to Rule 63. This episode has content notices for transphobia, racism, and ableism. The funny thing about trying to find success on TikTok is that nobody really knows how to do it. There are a lot of TikTok success stories and lots of people who will try to tell you that they have the secret to algorithmic success. But any honest creator will tell you that what goes viral is basically random, and that your best shot is posting videos consistently and staying in people's feeds in hopes that one day the algorithm will pick you up. And it makes sense that we know so little about how the algorithm works. After all, TikTok has no incentive to tell us the specifics on how to become successful, or else everyone on the app would just do those specific things. So everything else about how to succeed on TikTok is stuff that's been figured out by trial and error, mostly by creators. One thing that's clear is that more engagement, comments, likes, shares, etc., results in more views, which in turn results in more engagement, which in turn results in more views, and what hopefully becomes a positive feedback loop. Another thing we figured out is that when a big video or news story or sound is currently trending, it pays to make content around that topic, or using that sound. Basically, reacting to viral content makes you go viral too. Big surprise. So naturally, the highest performing videos on my sphere of TikTok might be covering the latest in trans news, giving a take on whatever topic is spreading throughout trans TikTok on a given week, or just reacting to viral videos made by cis people making a fool of themselves. Because, no offense cis people, but that happens a lot. One creator who does an amazing job at covering the latest in trans news is Marla Alpert.
I say that the best way to reply to these people is either through having 10 times as much information as them, and logic and reasoning, but also almost all of their takes are reductionist. If you can be reductionist in such a way that makes them look silly, I'm also for that. I'm for making bigots look silly.
Marla is an actress and singer who makes educational and political TikTok videos from her perspective as a Jewish trans woman, trying to navigate her difficult professional life while also advocating and being loud for her community in the cybersphere. Her videos range from the sardonically comical to the overly serious to the sharply deconstructive.
Every once in a while, I see someone in a comment section go, "Oh, don't worry, it's not appropriation. I'm half woman on my mother's side." And I'm like, that's me. You got that from me.
Marla's first videos on the app were actually just videos of herself singing, usually not even on face. Until one day, on a whim, she made a video reacting to the 2021 Tony Awards.
And it was the Tony Awards where Lauren Patton won the Tony essentially for appropriating transness, like pretending to be a trans character. The character was trans, and they gave her the Tony, and I basically broke down on live because I was like, we'll never fucking be accepted. Like, this is a trans role, and it was taken from us. And I made a video directly after it with my thoughts, and that was my first video to like blow up to reach like 30,000, 40,000 views, something like that.
It was after going viral for talking about trans issues that she shifted her content to debunking dominant media narratives about trans people.
The videos that do my best are like sort of like debunking. The biggest ones, the ones that like blew my account up were sports related ones, even though here's the big secret, everybody. Marla doesn't give two shits about sports. I don't enjoy sports. All I care about is undoing myths about trans people and not allowing sports to be used as a gateway for transphobia.
Big scoop.
Yeah.
Big scoop we're revealing on this show. Marla doesn't give a shit about sports. What I love most about Marla's content is that she doesn't just debunk things from a strictly scientific perspective. She looks at the big picture and puts all these media narratives in the context of a transphobic society.
And, I think people don't get it. Like, I mean, not only are they wrong about the sports debate, but they don't understand that it was very purposefully crafted and turned into a cultural issue to open the door to transphobia, because people are ignorant on sports. People are ignorant on trans people. People are ignorant on HRT. Everyone has their own little bullshit about the word fairness. How many people like don't get what they want and they go, this isn't fair. Is it? Is it not fair? Or is it just not what you wanted? As a trans person, you have to be a biologist, an endocrinologist, a linguist, a sociologist, and also know sports, apparently.
Yep. Side note, I did a whole episode about sports and misogynoir earlier this year, so go check that out if you haven't already. Marla's videos are great, but they've also experienced a lot of content suppression, which is why I wanted to talk to her for this episode.
My account is like literally like sinking like a ship. I don't know if anyone realizes. Yeah.
Is it like, are you losing followers or are you like...
I'm not losing followers. I'm just getting no views for like 2 months now.
Aside from the fact that Marla makes some of the best videos on the platform, as do all the creators I'm featuring here today, Marla appears to be doing everything right with respect to how to succeed in the algorithm.
My videos are not getting... Generally, they're not getting over 4,000 views. Even when I'm looking at the comments and the shares doing well from beginning to end, they're just not, I'm not getting the resulting viewer count from those numbers that I usually would.
Even though Marla's account is in good standing, her view counts in the past few months have been disproportionate to what they should be based on the amount of engagement that she's getting.
I mean, I have a video. It was one that blew up. I just want to check the numbers just to like tell you exactly what it is.
Sure.
It was the video I did. It's pinned on my account. It's one where I stitched Lucy when all these anti-trans laws really started to ramp up. It has 5,456 shares, 1,588 comments, and it only has 210,000 views, which I know that sounds like a lot of views, but for those shares, it's not. Because if I go over here to my most viewed video, which has almost 1 million views, that only has 766 shares and less comments and a less like to view ratio.
This is confusing, right? To a computer algorithm, videos that get a lot of comments, shares, saves, and etc. must be better videos, or at least videos that should be pushed out to more people so that in-app watch time increases, right? Well, it's not that simple. Marla suspects that a big part of why they're being suppressed is because they're talking about things that are too political.
So one of these videos, the one that got more views, but is less shared and less commented on and less liked, I think I mentioned the word trans once. It was about trans people, but I think I mentioned the word trans one single time. The video with Lucy was about trans rights and equality and anti-trans laws and all this stuff. And despite having probably 9 times as many shares, more comments, a higher like to view ratio, TikTok was like, we'll show it to like a good amount of people, but we're going to stop it here. Can't have too many people knowing about trans rights.
TikTok is more than capable of using voice to text to determine what the subject matter of a video is, and lots of creators have been able to demonstrate this phenomenon of political content being driven down by the algorithm. Another factor is that transphobes might be reporting her videos, which is very common for trans people on the app. The community guidelines meant to keep trans creators safe are often leveraged against them by bigots, and it can affect creators' standing in the algorithm even when videos aren't being taken down as a result of the reporting.
I'm not even getting that many community guidelines violations. I know a lot of people are seeing a big uptick in community guidelines violations. I am not. I do have a feeling that there's certain people who are reporting every single one of my videos, and I have a feeling that TikTok still takes that into account into some little bit. Like, someone reported this, we better not show it to a bunch of people just in case it is bad before we actually review it.
Another hypothesis is that instead of just liking big numbers in terms of likes and shares, what the app actually wants is controversy.
Like to view count can be too high on the app, because I have so many videos that have like a 1-to-3 like to view ratio that go nowhere, and constant shares and constant comments. And then I have videos that have like a 1-to-12 like to view ratio, but have like 50,000 views. It makes zero sense.
You can see how all of this is confusing for creators to know what sort of content they should be making. It can be even more frustrating when you want to cover a subject with an appropriate amount of gravity and nuance, but not want to make a rage-baiting, divisive hot take just to get your message out there. The issue goes deeper than view counts too, although as an actor and singer who's trying to use her platform to promote herself, getting low visibility does have a material impact on creators like Marla. The bigger picture is that cis people and trans people get treated very differently on the app in all sorts of ways.
I can't scroll through lives without finding at least 12 fucking live streams of purely cis people debating the validity of trans people.
Marla shared with me a shocking story about what happened with an ignorant cis user in one of her comment sections. Temporary content warning for genocide here.
There was this video I made that it was a reply to this guy that was like, this isn't genocide. It's wrong to use that word. You are invalidating people who suffered actual genocides. I'm like, I don't think you actually know what the word genocide means. And like, why are you like being like, you're not being genocided enough to go like, fucking Christ. I made a video reply to him. And then he just had this whole, meltdown in my comments. So this pastor kept using the word genocide in his comments. And I would reply using the word genocide. And I kept noticing, despite this being the pinned comment, none of my replies were getting likes. And I was like, what's going on here?
TikTok has a feature that filters out certain comments from being made public immediately. Creators can then go into that video settings to approve or deny these comments, which again is a good tool that's supposed to be used to protect creators. But this user was using the word genocide and not getting their comments filtered out. Marla was using the word genocide and having her comments filtered out on her own videos.
But then I went on my alt account, and every comment I made with the word genocide was not visible. So this cis person can use the word genocide in my comment section, but I can't. I have never seen a more blatant, like, you can't look at that and be like, TikTok doesn't have different rules for different people.
Trans people are no stranger to having their content taken down for hate speech, big quotes, while actual hate speech made by cis people stays up. Some of this is blatant, like in the last example, but others are hard for an algorithm to detect automatically. One infamous example of this is a video made by a cis guy crying with the caption, 50% of transgenders take their own lives. This fills me with so much sadness, which might seem sympathetic at first, but the audio playing with the video is Bon Jovi's song, Living on a Prayer, specifically with the lyric, whoa, whoa, we're halfway there. That video got seen tens of thousands of times. Meanwhile, actual trans people can't make videos detailing their own harassment because the word trans was detected in the video captions. Clown world. We live in clown world. This actually leads us to our second creator for the episode.
I've been a content creator for many, many years. I've dabbled in Twitch, which I may go back and start streaming soon. I've dabbled on Twitch. I've dabbled in YouTube. I've done all sorts. I used to shoot wedding videos, music videos. I love the format of being able to shoot something and just create art.
Azrael, who you can find at Big Baddie Zena on TikTok, is a music producer and content creator based out of the UK. In fact, you're listening to some of her music right now. You can find Azrael's incredible music on Spotify or anywhere else using the link in the show notes. And she also sells beats, so feel free to get in touch with her and follow her on TikTok to see when new music drops. Azrael started making videos during the pandemic to promote her music and to show up as some much-needed trans-Caribbean representation.
The other thing I'd say is probably breaking barriers. And what I mean by that is, first of all, like, I'm Black. I come from a Caribbean household on both sides of the family. And first of all, like, homosexuality alone is a big no-no. So to like trans, and it's like, I'm a trans lesbian. So that alone as well, it's like people see that and just frown upon it. But I don't want life to keep going the way it has been for many, many years when it comes to like my generation, where it's like people my age are scared to do things because how the elder generation will treat us and see us. I just want to live my life and be happy. Like, no one can live my life for me. And when I realized that, I started to care less about what people think of me. That's why my content on TikTok, I started to post more. I became more confident. I was just like, I don't care who sees my content because I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just living my life, and I shouldn't feel guilty for being who I am, whether people agree with it or not, because that's completely irrelevant to me. Because how they see me doesn't make me happy. How they see me doesn't pay my bills. It doesn't help me in any way, shape, or form. And the more I worry about it, the less I can be the woman that I know I am.
What a lovely, lovely human. Azrael went viral after making a video about being a trans lesbian, and that video, unfortunately, attracted a lot of hate comments from TERFs, which at first was pretty scary.
When I came out as trans and I was like, all right, I'm going to try my hand at making trans content. I'm not sure how it's going to go. I remember I made a TikTok video which went somewhat viral, and I said something to the extent of, well, all the lesbians that like trans lesbians, because, you know, I'm a woman and I'm a lesbian, so it just went hand in hand. And the video got such a mixed reception. Like, there was people that loved it, like, I'm here. And like, my followers started shooting up. I was like, what's going on? And then I had the TERFs come out. They were like, no, like, you're a man. I'm like, and it was nerve-wracking for me to make that video alone because I was pre-HRT. Even though I was making some changes, like I was shaving every day, going gym, stuff like that, I was still pre-HRT. So it's not like my skin softened. I didn't have any fat redistribution or anything like that.
Despite the hate that she got, By virtue of blowing up in the algorithm, she also found a lot of community and support, so she decided to keep going.
And I was nervous. I remember I made it and I had it in my dress for maybe like 2 hours. I was like, I can't post this. I can't post it. I was like, all right, I'm just going to post it. And then I posted it and I went to bed. And then I woke up next morning and saw it. I was like, oh my God. I was like, what's happening? And for about 2 weeks straight, my TikTok profile was just notifications all the time, mentions, follows, everything. And I was like, this actually feels nice, because even though there was a lot of TERFs in my comments, constantly doing stuff and constantly stitching me saying, no, you're a man, blah, 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 I had a lot of support. And the support alone is what made me be like, okay, it's not all bad. So I'm going to continue making content and see where this goes.
Xena talked with me about her experience with content suppression, and 2 major points got brought up. The first was that using certain words in your videos can keep you from getting the views you deserve.
Yeah, like, it shouldn't treat words like trans and lesbian like it's a bad word, because it isn't.
TikTok will obviously rarely admit to this, but this has been shown true by lots of LGBTQ creators in the past. The app has suppressed plenty of videos that have words like lesbian, or even trans elder in the captions, for example. As a solution to this, we've had to develop a sort of code speak to slip past the censors, which, wow, sounds very dystopian when you say it out loud. For example, instead of lesbian, we spell it out $LE$BEAN, or $bean. But it's not always something so wholesome sounding. Like with Marla, we can't always say words like kill or genocide on the app when reporting on really serious trans news. So we have to resort to saying things like unalive or mass unaliving of trans kids, which really takes the edge off of the very serious political moment that we're in.
So, like, we shouldn't have to, it's like what you said earlier, we shouldn't have to jump through hoops, changing letters and using symbols with words that people use every single day. That's, again, it's not offensive language. It's not an offensive language at all. So, like, I see people, like, if they write trans, but instead of an A, they use the at symbol, stuff like that. We shouldn't have to do that stuff.
And it's more than just queer people facing this problem. Back in the summer of 2020, lots of creators found that hashtags like Black Lives Matter were being suppressed, along with any deep conversations about race in America. And abroad, TikTok has suppressed information about everything from the war in Ukraine to the Chinese Uyghur genocide. Over time, many people of color have also figured out, through trial and error, that saying white people will get their video suppressed, even though white people can say the word white people. There are a few different strategies for working around this. For example, pointing at your palm and saying, these colored people, which is just insane. It demands so much additional labor from Black people to think about how to get around the algorithm's censors, which is a whole other layer to how digital discrimination affects marginalized people.
And, like, if you look at top creators, like, you have creators that are in the millions and they're trans and they're Black, for example, and Asian, and it's like they literally have millions of followers, but sometimes they still have to jump through hoops to make sure they don't get shadow banned, and that's mind blowing to me. It really is. Like, we should be able to do the bare minimum and be okay on the app.
White conservative pundits can talk about literally living in 1984 all they want, but actual marginalized people are already living in a world where they have to use secret hand gestures and code words to avoid being seen by racist robots. Clown worlds. Being both Black and trans, Azrael has been victim to one of the most severe versions of content suppression on TikTok, which we call shadow banning.
So, as of right now, I have an account warning on my page, and it's absolutely insane because, one, I've broken no rules. I've done nothing wrong. It's just people will keep reporting, and if enough people report you, TikTok will be like, here's a warning, or video taken down, or sound removed, whatever.
Shadow banning is essentially when your account gets invisibly blocked, meaning there's no big warning when you sign in that says you can no longer post videos for the next month, but functionally, there may as well be. TikTok and other apps generally deny that shadow banning is even a real thing, but plenty of creators have reported getting ridiculously low views despite being told that their accounts are in good or okay standing.
Yeah, at one point, my videos were getting thousands of views like consistently, and then it got to a point where my videos were getting like 20 views and maybe just a few likes, and it's like, I have thousands of followers, that's not right. And I was like, I'm shadow banned. Like, yeah, I'm actually shadow banned. I'm like, that's crazy.
Azrael's content was getting ridiculously suppressed by the algorithm, even though the content of her videos has never been not safe for work, and every video that got taken down because of being reported by racists and transphobes got put back up because, again, there was nothing wrong with them. Mostly, she just made reaction and stitch videos, which, remember, are supposed to be highly successful.
It's not like I make like not safe for work content that's, you know, censored or whatever. Like my content before, it was just purely I'm trans, lesbian, I make music, I do reactions. Like I've even had reactions taken down. And I was always confused because whenever I got taken down, I didn't say anything, but they would always get taken down. I was like, someone has to be reporting me. I'm like, someone is definitely reporting me because that's not normal. Like, even by TikTok standards, that is not normal, the way my videos keep getting taken down. Mm-hmm. So, like, at one point, I just stopped stitching videos. I stopped duetting. I was like, I can't lose this page. So, yeah, I just stopped.
As a result of getting mass reported on TikTok, creators like Azrael can do literally nothing wrong and still find themselves unable to get more than a few views on their videos.
And every single like takedown, I have appealed it, and TikTok has been like, you've done nothing wrong every single time, and I still have that warning on my page. I've had videos taken down just talking about being trans, a lesbian, whatever, and it's happened so much to the point where I was like, I'm going to stop posting for a few weeks because I generally don't know what to do. I don't want to lose my page. At the time, it was like 28K. I was like, I don't want to lose my page. Like, I've worked really hard to get here, and I was like, I don't know if I can do it again from the ground up.
Azrael had to make an entirely new account to circumvent this issue, which basically meant restarting her whole platform from scratch. She tried contacting TikTok about this issue, but they haven't responded, either because there are millions of creators or because they're outright ignoring her messages. In the meantime, she's just stuck with what she has. And remember, this isn't just about, oh, boo-hoo, you're not getting enough attention on the internet. As a music producer, Azrael uses her platform to promote her work, and the issue of content suppression is compounded by her disability as well.
Because I deal with chronic illnesses, so I can't work a regular job. And if I can make a living off being a content creator, a music producer, that would just be everything to me. But I also know that a lot of it is based on luck as well as who you know. So for me, I just have to keep making content, and hopefully one day it just picks up and life changes.
In the past few years, independent content creation has emerged as a great career path for people who have talents in artistry, education, and advocacy, especially for those who've been pushed out of traditional work by discrimination on the basis of race, disability, gender, and more. But Black trans women with chronic illnesses who are already deeply discriminated against in real life are also discriminated against by recommendation algorithms. It's especially egregious when you consider that many of her videos were taken down for, quote, minor safety and or nudity.
Yeah, I had a video taken down for minor safety, and I was confused because it was literally a picture of me pre-transition, like 4 years ago, which I was clearly an adult. And like at some point in the transition, I was like, there's no minors in this post. Why is it taken off for minor safety? Like, I'm literally an adult.
In general, trans women's bodies are over-sexualized, even in non-sexual contexts. The fact that trans women's content gets taken down for minor safety when they're not posting anything raunchy at all is a direct reflection of this, and yet another way that human bias is coded into algorithms.
I'm just very careful with what I post. I'm very careful. Like if I reply to a video, like, hey, would this reply get me like on like a timeout or whatever? So like I'm just very careful, and I'm just hoping that the account warning is removed.
I want to dig into this concept of sexualization with the help of my next guest, who has the unique experience of being a full-time content creator.
Yeah, I just got to share tons of stuff that I never felt like I could share before, and it was very liberating.
Lauren Sundstrom is a model and full-time social media influencer based out of Vancouver. Over on TikTok and Instagram, she posts everything from vlogs and brand deal videos to videos about her life as a trans woman living in Canada.
I started posting on TikTok, I think in 2020, like everybody else. And, but like I didn't start posting in earnest on there until probably 2021. And I think it was in August of 2021 that I got my first viral video. And that was kind of it. I went from having like 700 followers to like 2 weeks later having like 25,000 followers. It was just wild. And that just goes to show how fast TikTok can be, how much of a roller coaster it can be, because the algorithm is just designed to push your content out to people who might not otherwise see it, which is a good and bad thing, as we both well know.
Lauren transitioned in the early 2000s and has had a long career in marketing and journalism, which, by the way, you can hear all about over on our Patreon, where we have the full uncut interviews with all 5 of our guests this month. It was blowing up on TikTok that allowed Lauren to get to the point where she could quit her office job and have content creation be her main source of income. The dream.
TikTok was really what ended up cinching the deal for me, because now I've got almost like 128,000 followers there. And it's that kind of following and growth and community that has allowed me to go off on my own and really give this a good shot at being a full-time content creator. And I just it felt like it would never, ever happen. And then in an instant, it can happen, especially if you play your cards right and speak to your strengths. And for me, that was storytelling, and also probably at the time having a pixie cut.
Lauren had a lot to say about being a trans influencer, which we'll get to later. But first, we should talk about some of the ways that she's experienced algorithmic bias.
Every single time I post a video now, it automatically goes under review. So I don't know what the deal is there. I also noticed that like other creators who post similar things, cisgender creators who post similar things to me, who have a similar followership, who show a similar amount of skin. And I'm thinking of one creator in particular who I'm mutuals with, and she's fucking fabulous. I love her so much. But I did notice that like she'll get wild views on videos that she doesn't have very much engagement on. And then I can have like 25 or 30% engagement and I won't get the views. And it's just, what is going on here? Why is this not being sent out at the same level as, my cisgender counterparts? This is weird.
Across both TikTok and Instagram, Lauren has found that cisgender creators in the same line of work as her, with similar followings, get far more views with respect to how much engagement they get. And she suspects that it's because between the travel vlogs and makeup tutorials, Lauren talks about trans issues from time to time.
And then I do see other trans women, get in the millions. So obviously it's possible to get these big followings. I'm not saying that like this is something that happens to every single one of us, but the ones who I've noticed it doesn't happen to, the hampering, I mean, are the ones who have never spoken about a trans issue in their entire lives and strictly stick to the fluffy stuff.
Once again, we see that content creators who get political get suppressed in the algorithm. Lauren has also had videos taken down that were completely non-sexual in nature, since TikTok can scan videos for content.
I once wore, in a video, a light pink bodysuit, and it immediately got taken down for violating community guidelines until I appealed it, and then a human saw it, and then it was restored. But the algorithm automatically just thought I was fully nude. So, because this bodysuit kind of like matched the pinkiness of my complexion.
And it's not just that trans women's posts are being taken down for being too sexual, it's that cis women's equally revealing posts aren't being taken down. The rules aren't being enforced evenly.
Even on Instagram, I posted a photo kind of in the likeness of things that, like, have you heard of this model named Charlie Howard? She posts these like beautiful sort of like artistic photos showing some of her like squishier bits, her rolls, her parts of her breasts, sometimes like full ass on Instagram. And I was like, oh, I want to do a picture like that. I think her photos are so gorgeous. And so I did a photo like that. I didn't see anything that was not within the TikTok Instagram community guidelines. And it was stuff that Charlie and other women like her have posted a million times before. And mine got taken down for solicitation.
What's especially gross about apps like TikTok and Instagram is how underage girls are allowed to post videos that border on not safe for work. And I don't mean that in a slut-shaming, don't show off too much skin, young lady kind of way, but in a, hey, TikTok, why are you letting minors post sexual content, especially when you discriminate against trans bodies kind of way?
The fact that underage girls are being promoted so heavily by the algorithm, because while they're being sexy, even though they claim to like be this community that supports like literal children, they are children. I don't see that happening because I see their videos getting pushed to the For You page while they're being sexy, while adult trans women do the same thing and their videos get suppressed. And I get that algorithms are written by humans and humans have biases, but like it's just so blatant. And you have to wonder if it's intentional and why. And yeah, I don't know. Sometimes this app is just too gross for my liking.
All this algorithmic bias isn't coming from nowhere. It's emblematic of an age-old stereotype about trans women and how they deserve to be treated.
Well, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of those algorithmic biases is that every trans woman is a sex worker. And that's why sexy videos or videos where we're talking about anything to do with sex or sexuality automatically get suppressed.
Sex work is work. Sex workers should absolutely be allowed to use popular public platforms like TikTok to advertise their services and screen clients. It's actually better for sex workers' safety to have a free and open internet where their content isn't taken down. But in a post-FOSTA-SESTA world, where apps like TikTok can have an unfair algorithmic bias, sex workers, and by extension, any woman or person who's perceived as a woman who posts even slightly raunchy-looking content, is going to be suppressed, shadow banned, or banned entirely.
And another time, I was hanging out with two girlfriends of mine at Wreck Beach, which is a nude beach here in Vancouver. And they were two trans women. Both of them are sex workers. And we were all posing with our bottoms on, but we were covering our boobs. And it was like a really cute photo. Got taken down for solicitation again, possibly because there were just two sex workers in the photo. I did appeal it and it did get restored. So that one was restored. The other one, like it got taken down. Then I appealed it. It got restored and then it got taken down again. And they were like, you can't appeal this. So it's really, you see the biases. And that's why I don't think that TikTok's algorithm, as far as like community guidelines things, is all that different from Instagram. So I wouldn't be surprised if like trans automatically means sex worker in the algorithm's eyes.
Hopefully you're seeing the connections here. It's not just trans people that are impacted by content suppression, it's any member of any marginalized group in society, either because they're getting political and challenging the dominant cultural norms, or simply because they're existing, like most sex workers and trans people. And hopefully it's not too tinfoil hat to say that TikTok's incentive is to try to keep their platform squeaky clean, which means they have an incentive to algorithmically suppress anybody who challenges the power structure that keeps TikTok going. So you can see a problem starting to take shape. TikTok is a great way to find people who are like you and share your beliefs about the world, but because of the way the app is currently set up, it can be challenging to say what you actually want to say or make the art you actually want to make. As a creator whose main income stream is now content creation, especially one who lives in Canada where the TikTok Creator Fund isn't currently active, Lauren has to thread the needle of staying true to her values while also staying successful and relevant in the algorithm. And that can be really tricky when you're on a platform that suppresses trans voices because they're seen as too sexual or too political.
it doesn't mean that I'm going to be any less outspoken about certain things on my platforms. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to talk about the realities of being trans or oppression or call out transphobia. Like, I'm still going to do those things. I think there are people who do it way better than I do. But I have things to say about being trans still. And if that means that I'm less palatable to certain brands, then I don't want to work with those people in the first place, you know?
I asked Lauren if she has trouble making political content in between the branded videos, and this is what she had to say.
The thing is that I don't think it's radical to say, like, Black trans women are dying and that needs to stop. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, to me, that just doesn't, it's not radical. It's basic human rights and suffering and trying to call attention to it. I try to pepper in the fluffy stuff as well so that I'm not losing my niche, I guess, where I'm, you know, genuinely talking about things that I am interested in. I actually, before I went to journalism school, I went to makeup school. Like, I'm a trained makeup artist and I love makeup and I love talking about makeup. I love fashion. And that love from it came from my modeling days. These are all things that I genuinely love very, very much and want to talk about.
I believe that in a perfect world, trans people can bring their full selves into their work, whatever that looks like for them. But the algorithm just doesn't let that be possible. While we're talking about influencers, let's bring on our next guest, Maybe Burke.
Talk about goals of a beauty career. I want a sponsorship with Maybelline.
What was your tagline that you
Maybe it's Maybe Burke. Like, Maybelline doing like a non-binary campaign. Maybe they're born with it. Maybe it's Maybe Burke. Come on.
Come on. Maybe is a professional trans advocate as well as an actor, writer, and content creator. Like Marla, they started making content during the pandemic when in-person acting gigs suddenly went away.
In 2019, and like pre and leading up to the pandemic, I was primarily an actor. I was working in TV, doing some theater gigs and things like that. And then all of those things went away in March 2020. And the reason I signed up for TikTok was to have a creative outlet and to replace the void theater left in my life. Because literally since the 4th grade, I have been working on something in theater, I think that whole time. Until 2020.
Maybe went viral a couple times in 2020 for her videos about the theater world as well as about politics.
The first video I had that got large. Do you remember, I think it's Hannah the Harpist or whatever, that like harp music that was playing where people were doing like, you have to stop, and then like something like that was the trend?
I think so.
Mine was, we have to stop calling J.K. Rowling a TERF. My reasoning being that she doesn't qualify as a feminist.
Yeah.
People did not like it, but it blew up. I still get comments on that video to this day. And that was my first taste of like, oh, what is this app that like you can blow up on?
Maybe's stories with going viral show us that sometimes the problem with TikTok's algorithm isn't having your videos shown to too few people, but rather having your videos shown to too many of the wrong people.
Yeah, like who I'm shown to and who I'm shown, I've seen a pretty distinct difference in those.
Since the algorithm dictates who your videos get shown to, it's entirely possible, and in fact surprisingly common, that videos by trans people cross over to conservative TikTok. Us TikTokers use the phrase, "I'm on the wrong side of TikTok," when their videos start being shown to people who end up sending them hate and harassment en masse.
I've had a couple of my videos dive deep into the wrong side of TikTok, and like talking like months of people commenting things referencing one video on every video I ever posted. I used a fucking Hank Green audio once, and people harassed me about it for months, and I was like, bitches, that's not even my voice, go harass him. But through all of those moments and all of those things where I am on the wrong side of TikTok, as people say, my For You page stays the same. So TikTok knows I don't want to be on that side. They're not showing me those videos. They don't think that I belong on that side. They just know that my video is doing well over there. So they're going to show more conservative people my video.
You would think that conservative assholes don't want to see trans people on their feed. But remember, controversy drives up engagement. So does anger. It's in the app's best interest to keep you watching, keep you commenting, keep you making reaction videos. And that means playing into your emotions. So a video of yours can pick up traction on conservative TikTok, and once it does, the floodgates are open. The algorithm either doesn't understand what engagement counts as harassment, or it doesn't care. It sees the comments going up and decides to keep showing your video to people who hate you. Or worse, a conservative stitches one of your videos or makes a video about you, meaning that even if you delete your original video to avoid the hate keeps coming. This is exactly the kind of environment that recommendation media incentivizes, an environment where people go to be angry.
One of my favorite creators to follow, and this is not necessarily like a plug because this is a white cis woman. I just love her content. She's a hairstylist and posts a lot of what she deems Karen videos, even though I think we over and misuse the phrase Karen. But she makes replies to comments when people are like, why are you always complaining about your clientele? Why are you making fun of your clients? Like, why do you always complain about these things? She does the like standard like TikTok post 3 videos a day. And one of those videos are the Karen skits. She posts videos of her like transitions of doing people's hair and like her actual work, and then just like fun, silly things as well. And she's like, you're only seeing the ones where I'm mocking people and making fun of people because you want to mock people and make fun of people. That's what you're doing. The TikTok algorithm, I mean, we can talk about how it's fucked up and it's bigoted and all of those things, but it's smart and it's good. And I'm saying it's good in what it's built to do, not that it's good like ethically. It's good in the way that like the United States of America is good at what it's built to do. You know, it was built to be what it is. Like the system's not broken. The system's operating exactly how it was built. And TikTok's algorithm in this metaphor apparently is the United States of America.
As someone who's been hate bombed after a few big conservative influencers found my videos and made stitches about them, I can tell you that it's not fun. Suddenly getting hundreds of comments a day filled with outright bigotry is not only demoralizing on a human level, but it makes it impossible to gauge with my actual regular audience. And once the hate starts, it doesn't go away until the mob gets bored and moves on to the next target. I would be remiss to not talk about the infamous Twitter account Libs of TikTok. Sitting at 1.4 million followers, Libs of TikTok posts TikTok videos that conservatives deem to be cringe, most often videos made by trans people, often with calls to action for those people to be harassed, confronted in real life, or even fired from their jobs. And it works. Several people have been fired from their jobs because of online hate mobs being mobilized against everyday people because they were determined by a bunch of conservatives to be groomers. And this isn't just fringe internet weirdos either. Conservative media outlets like the Daily Wire and Fox News are in close relationships with the owners of the account and often report on their tweets uncritically to send even more hate towards trans creators. This is more than just the occasional internet bully. This is an infrastructure of online transphobia. Transphobes set up burner accounts just to comment hate on trans people's videos. They go on Twitter to be given daily action items by Libs of TikTok and other hate accounts. Well-paid pundits like Matt Walsh and Jordan Peterson build entire careers off of making trans people look foolish. And the end result is that public opinion on trans issues seldom advances beyond pointless philosophical non-debates like asking, "What is a woman?" or a portrayal of trans people as an ultimate evil. We're somehow sinister yet foolish, hypersexual yet undesirable, antisocial creeps who have no place in society, yet who have somehow infiltrated all levels of government and education with their trans agenda. I'll be brief with this, but it's a common tactic of fascist ideology to paint your enemy as both incredibly strong and incredibly weak. Trans people, supposedly, are a fringe group of social outcasts, weirdos, a group of people so insignificant that there's no need for a change in social order, pronouns, language, etc., to accommodate us. And also, trans people are a force that requires the full extent of the law levied against us to prevent our evil mission from succeeding. Hence the public vitriol. Hence the hundreds of anti-trans bills proposed and passed in 2022 alone. Scholars and activists alike have referred to the current political moment as a kind of genocide. And despite the existence of the internet, a vast interconnected network of knowledge sharing, thanks to algorithmic bias, trans people are increasingly voiceless. So hopefully now it's clear why I've dedicated nearly an hour to talking about algorithmic suppression on TikTok, and why I think it's important to highlight the people who are successfully beating the censors.
The way that I kind of have gotten around that, besides just switching my language and coming up with euphemisms, for example, every time I try to talk about fascism, I talk about fashion and fashionable people. And I always make sure of hinting it so that it is clear enough where I'm talking about. But also avoiding getting immediately banned for speaking in that way.
Lucy Leon is the director of social media for the Transgender Health and Wellness Center in San Diego, California. She's also an opera singer who makes TikTok videos about social justice issues, singing, and finding her own trans joy. Lucy first started TikTok to document her transition journey and work through her thoughts and feelings about transitioning, hence her handle, Lucy Thinks Aloud.
I had already started TikTok, and I was like slowly kind of creating a platform, but I didn't really have an aim when I started. I was just, I opened it because I was bored during the pandemic, and I was just making singing videos or like very casual political commentary. And then as soon as I came out, I started doing what I feel like a lot of us do, which is narrativizing my own story, my own perspective and the changes and challenges that came with now discovering that my life needed to change in order for it to feel fulfilled. And that's how I came to have a platform on TikTok, through telling and kind of working through my own thoughts out loud.
Like some of the other guests on today's show, Lucy transitioned during the pandemic, so she knows the value in finding your own trans community, both in real life and online.
I feel, TikTok in that way, and social media in general, I think is such a big part of trans culture, because we, especially at the beginning of our journeys, we need so much of this constant reinforcement of being seen, because we crave that. We were invisible to not only others, but to ourselves for a long time. So for me, at least, TikTok is a space where I can show those parts of me that I felt disconnected with and get not only validation, but reinforcement and create community through people that see themselves in what I am making. And yeah, it's just, I see it as another art form in a way, creating content for social media, as funny as it is, and maybe it sounds a little pretentious to say like, oh yeah, TikTok is like an art form, but I really see it like that. I think social media has a lot of the same elements that every other art form has. It's a different medium to communicate and to connect with people. And I think approaching it that way has allowed me to really maintain my platform as a very personal space for my own self-expression and for connecting with others.
I knew I had to talk to Lucy for this episode because earlier this year, she started a campaign to raise awareness about the dire state of trans issues. But because she was doing so on TikTok, she had to get a little creative.
I was running this campaign during Pride Month, very, very heavily talking about the reality of this exterminationist campaign that the Republican Party and conservatives and Christian nationalists are running here in America against trans people. I had the objective of normalizing talking about this persecution as genocide, because I truly believe that is what it is. And with recent developments, it has become more and more and more clear that is absolutely the intention of the people that are right now antagonizing us. It is not just we disagree with you getting access to treatment that you need. Is we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that you disappear from this world. So it was my intention to kind of bring attention to the urgency of that situation and to stop sugarcoating the reality that we're facing, to stop making it easily digestible for cis people to just feel like, well, trans people are having some troubles. And it's like, no, we are facing a level of violence that should not even be allowed to exist in this planet. And it's just so normalized that people don't see it. So my objective with the campaign was to get people to start saying out loud, stop trans genocide.
It is hugely admirable to get on a public platform like TikTok and talk about such important but divisive issues. But like we mentioned before, you can't just go around using words like genocide in your videos and still get the attention that these issues deserve.
But because I obviously could not say those words out loud on TikTok without immediately getting all my videos pressed, what I came up with the idea was to ask people to make a sign that said the word stop trans genocide and have it always in the background of my videos and bringing it up whenever I needed people to understand what I was talking about. I made the letters of the sign kind of not clear enough so that an algorithm could not read them, and figure out what they were talking about. And I realized that because of that, my videos would not get suppressed. If I said the word, because I tried that before, if I said the word, my videos would get only a couple hundred views. But if I just showed it, the sign, I was able to get around that and got a lot of traction with those videos.
TikTok can scan the content of your videos, especially when you type the words into the app's caption writer, and then it can choose whether or not your video should be suppressed. But if you record yourself with a physical sign that's difficult for a robot to read, you have a better chance of getting your message out there.
And I started asking people to do the same, asking other creators, like, if you believe that this is a problem, if you wanna, bring attention to this fact and kind of normalize talking about it with a much more accurate representation of the severity of the situation, I would ask them to make their own signs, to put them on display when they were talking about trans issues, so that this problem that we feel as a community, but that is so largely invisible for the cis community, became visible to everyone. But I think within the context of TikTok, it was a couple of the creators that are within our social circle that really took it on, like Marla Alpert, which is an incredible creator. Erin, I forgot her last name, but Erin Lemore, yeah. And she's another incredible creator who is doing a lot of the heavy educational work and journalistic work around what's happening with trans people. But what I wanted to do is kind of make a clear course of action to visibilize the problem. And it worked to a certain degree, even if it was at the expense of my mental health. But
using this tactic, Lucy was able to bring a lot of attention to the anti-trans bills popping up across the country. It's an incredibly smart move for these incredibly dystopian times where we have to make up code words, hand signals, and signs that can't be read by robots in order to have a voice. But what Lucy didn't plan for was just how burdensome this campaign would be.
I think taking on this campaign was a very ambitious thing of me to do. And although I am happy with the results, constantly having to read about and see and talk with and respond to the context of genocide from the perspective of someone who is very much part of a community that is affected by it, it's an incredibly emotionally heavy task. I started having nightmares every night and panic attacks constantly. I couldn't think of anything else because, there's only so much that you can read about hate crimes against people like you, and read literal exterminationist policy that is being proposed in so many different states in this country by people who see us as less as human, without internalizing that as part of your own both, my self-hatred would take that language and speak it to me. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I interpret how it felt.
I started my transition 5 years ago, and it took me a while to build up a stomach for the kind of stuff that I read online about trans people today. I cannot imagine being less than a couple years into my transition and reading this much about just how much people want me dead.
And also just, it's one thing is to doom scroll, another thing is to create only doom content, because eventually that is just a recipe for your mental health to go down the drain, which is exactly what happened to me. I ended up having to finish the campaign a couple of, probably like a week before the month was over, because I had a really terrible breakdown. And now I still talk about the issue, and I'm doing kind of educational work when I feel like it's absolutely necessary and I feel with the energy to engage with it. But I am a lot more cautious and less brave about it, because if I'm honest, I think it's important to give back to the community, and it's important to talk about these things, and it's definitely work that has to be done. But I think trying to be the one person doing it never works. I think it's something that we have to learn to kind of pass on, do what we can and then let other people take over when they need you, because if you're always at the tip of the spear, you're always taking the most impact. And that's a little bit how it felt in that moment.
So far this episode, we've talked about content suppression, but we haven't gotten to the core of how it feels to be a trans content creator on TikTok. Making pro-trans content to the point of burnout and self-harm is a real problem that nearly all of my guests this month have had to deal with. I'll let them speak for themselves.
I don't. I'm bad at self-care. I work myself until I go, I need to walk away for like a day or two. The best I do is go rant to one of my partners or something, or, a friend that I'm, confide in, like, someone like Lucy, who I talk to all the time when we're, having struggles. Yeah, it's overwhelming. People are always like, I don't know how you have the strength. And I'm like, this is how I have the strength. I get out my rage. In some ways, it's a mix of validating myself, validating my existence, educating, and getting out my frustration. I think that's why I had to change up my platform and what I was doing like 3 or 4 months ago, when, really the big pickup in anti-trans laws started in late February, early March. I was doing, I was covering a lot of them and, every new thing that came up. And then on Mondays, I was doing with Jeannie and Emily over at the Transverse, I was doing Transistence, this trans news show. And it would just be every Monday I would wake up and have to read like 30 articles about how people are trying to make me not exist. And I did it for a number of months. And at some point I had to be like, this is so necessary, but I can't handle it right now. So I had to step away.
I get exhausted trying to make educational content on TikTok. It's either I only benefit from it when it gets pushed to the wrong side of TikTok, and then I get a little more money because it blows up and people make stitches out of how stupid I sound, or it doesn't do anything and I just put in a lot of effort for nothing for something that I do get paid very well to do in my professional life. So we talked a little bit about in the past that I am like moving towards doing more like brand ambassador, like influencer kind of things. But also people talk so much about how unreliable and how hard it is to like be a content creator on TikTok. TikTok's a great place to like get discovered and build an audience, but it's an impossible place to maintain that.
And I have gotten threats of violence on the most innocuous videos, where this one person who, after I like looked at his profile, it was a cis man. After I looked at his profile, realized he like lives in the same province that I do, was like, God, you just have such a punchable face. I just want to punch you. And I was like, oh, that feels upsetting. This wasn't even anything to do with being trans. This wasn't anything, at least I don't think it was. I can't recall at this point what the content of the video was, but I believe it was quite innocuous. And this guy just like wanted to hurt me for no reason. And I obviously blocked him immediately, but it was just like, oh, this person like could be somewhere in the greater Vancouver area and could just run across me and decide, hey, now's my opportunity to punch her and to commit a violent act. And that scares me. For a while, I had so much anxiety about leaving the house. I had to have my partner with me at all times.
The thing that actually kind of scared me away, not away, but it scared me a little bit more is when I was on a dating app and I started getting people recognizing me or being like, oh, I recognize that room. Oh my God, you are like Lucy. And then I realized like, wow, yeah, people know my room. Like people know aspects of my life that should be in many ways like very private, but I have decided to make public as part of gaining this audience and having this platform. And while I am okay with it, and I was aware that that was a possibility, the reality of it sometimes is heavy, right? Because when you're that visible, your life starts becoming a little bit more limiting in certain aspects. I am much more aware that every interaction that I have with people can be placed on social media and drama can happen, and I can, I was on Pride and I wasn't completely sober at the time that I got some people approaching me. And right after that, I was like, I hope that I was kind and nice and welcoming to these people, because I do not remember what happened in that interaction. And I was just like, oh God, what if, someone goes online and and I did something, I said something rude to them, even though I didn't mean to. And it's just a level of social anxiety that just really adds up, So anyone is starting a platform, just be aware that it kind of consumes your life a little bit once it has gone to a certain point.
The fun part of me is I'm an actor, like I'm used to being recognized, but I'm also at the place where people recognize me and I don't know where from, because I do so many things and I don't know if they follow me on TikTok or if they've seen me on TV or what it is. And sometimes they don't tell you. And it's like, do you know me from like Tinder? Like, I need to know where you know me from. Because I was in a play off Broadway, like not a huge deal. And I was walking through Times Square one day and a man literally got in my face and pointed his finger in my face. And like, it was a very quick and seemingly aggressive interaction. And I didn't realize until like my heart stopped like pounding and he walked away, that he was telling me that I did a great job in the show last night. He had seen the show the night before and was complimenting me. I had no idea what he was saying. I didn't register it. And I thought I was being assaulted. Like I went into like a fight or flight or freeze kind of response. And so his perception of me now is that he complimented me and I like dodged and walked away. Somebody just needs to be teaching men how to interact with people.
And that's tough. And like you can say like, oh, I know who I am till you're blue in the face. And like, I know what I'm saying is good. Mm-hmm. But it's really hard because even if you are okay with the content of what you were saying, part of you starts to think, is there a way I could have said it differently so that this doesn't happen? And like, why should you have to think about ways to say it differently so that you won't receive violence? that doesn't make any sense, especially since what you were saying wasn't wrong. It was pretty innocuous. It was trying to bridge a gap. And people were like, we're not having you bridge this gap. We do not want you to bridge this gap. And it festers into something so toxic.
I completely understand how making pro-trans content on an anti-trans app and in an anti-trans world can be demoralizing and might make you question your impact. Put yourself in the shoes of a trans educational content creator just for a moment. You start making videos and they start getting good views. You start attracting a following. People love your takes, and with every month your insight gets sharper. You get some mean comments here and there, but you're able to laugh them off. You'll show them. You devote every day of your life to making content about your own oppression, for free, by the way. You make stunning art, perfect debunking videos that effortlessly shoot down every conservative talking point. And then one day you end up on the wrong side of TikTok. The hate becomes too much, so you quit the app for a few days. You come back to a community guidelines violation on the video that got all that traction. You appeal it and TikTok puts it back up, but something's changed. You keep making your usual videos, but neither your view counts nor your follower counts are increasing anymore. They're stagnant. Actually, your views are getting worse. Less than 1,000 views on a video you work extra hard on, even though you have tens of thousands of followers. Your fans, the other trans people who have a parasocial relationship with you and whose algorithms are set to show them every video you post, love your videos. But you look around and the world isn't getting any better. Your landlord is raising your rent. Your boss just misgendered you again. You get recognized on the street from your videos, and instead of it being fun, it kind of catches you off guard. You weren't ready for that kind of praise just yet, and it ends up being awkward. And then you check the news. More anti-trans bills keep coming. You start to wonder if what you're doing is having an impact on anything at all. Of course, you are making an impact. Every trans person who gets on social media and shares their story publicly is a hero in my eyes. One more drop in a crashing wave of freedom, each hit eroding the rocks on the shore that have been there for generations, holding back the sea. It can be hard to know the impact you have when you're just one drop in the ocean. It can be hard to tell whether you're really in the ocean or whether you're just a puddle. But rest assured, you are a part of something greater, something ancient, something that all life sprang up from, something powerful. When we come back from a short break, we're going to take this conversation a bit deeper. What does it mean to make free educational trans content for cis entertainment? What does having a trans community exclusively through online mediums like TikTok mean for our mental health? And most importantly, what can we do to fix this system that marginalizes trans people so much? All of that after the break. Rule 63 is independently funded and brought to you in part by listeners like you. If you like what you're hearing and you want to hear even more sweet, sweet content from me, Anna Marie, PhD, and my co-producer Danny, you can give us just a couple dollars a month on Patreon to get access to bonus content. Included in that content is the full uncut interview with every guest we've had on the show, including the 6.5 hours worth of interviews used in this very episode. If you've been on the fence about supporting the show financially, now is the best time. This is like getting 5 whole other podcast episodes with some of the best digital creators that I know for just a couple of dollars. An insane deal. Danny and I also do monthly live streams where you can discuss all of your thoughts on this month's topic with us, live. If that sounds fun to you, or if you just want to support the show out of the goodness of your own heart, head on over to patreon.com/rule63. That's patreon.com/RULE63. The link is in the show notes. Thanks so much. Now let's get back to the show. We've talked a little bit about the mental health aspects of making educational trans content on TikTok, but now I'd like to go a little bit deeper. Because if you think about what we're really doing, it's making content about our own marginalization on a public platform, meaning that some of our viewers are people who don't experience that marginalization. At least not often. Cis people definitely see impacts of transphobia all the time, but that's a different episode. This is free educational labor, which we should definitely be thinking critically about. So along with asking them about their experience with content suppression and hate speech on TikTok, I asked all of my guests this month another question. Who is your content for? Do you make content for cis people's education and betterment? Do you even have cis people in mind when making your videos? And what do we do about all these gosh darn trolls in our comment sections? Marla makes videos debunking anti-trans talking points all the time, and this is what she had to say about educating her cis viewership. Do you see your content more as like for trans people or for cis people's education?
I bring this up a lot. Especially when someone's like, oh, you shouldn't be so mean to them. How are they ever going to learn? I'm like, this person's being like blatantly hateful. Like, you don't think I know what a troll or like a, just a straight up bigot looks like and sounds like. I deal with them every fucking day. Like, I can read them from a mile away. And you know what? If I'm wrong once in a while, I'm wrong once in a while. Great. But my content often, especially when I'm replying to people, it's not for that person. If that person learns something, great. If that person screams and yells and walks away and 4 months later, like it sticks in their brain, great. I make my content for two reasons. One is for cis people who are on the fence and reasonable and looking to learn and better themselves and be better allies, or I should say accomplices, because I'm tired of allies. And for trans people to have the rebuttals and the language they need to reply to these transphobic statements, because we know they just get played over and over again in a different form. Like whatever someone says to me, I guarantee has been said to me 10 other times.
If I'm being totally honest here, not a lot of cis people seem to appreciate the fact that claiming to just be asking questions or just making a joke, especially from the other side of a screen, really gets our defenses up and can often be transphobic in and of itself.
It's just another one where it's like this white guy just doing this, like the most common trans joke. Like, if you can identify as na-na-na-na-na, why can't I identify as na-na-na-na-na? And he was like, a lot of people aren't getting it, and I would never say anything transphobic. I'm like, you just did. You just did. Why does everyone think transphobia is like, you have to like punch a trans person in the face for it to be transphobia? You can still say transphobic things without being like, the term I'm starting to use is cisgenderist, without thinking of yourself as superior as a cis person. You can still say transphobic things. Again, it's just a bias that is inherent in our society, and you have to undo it. And if trans people are telling you that's wrong, and you pick that up through bias, and it's the same stupid joke that person who wants us not to exist is making, then just stop. Say, I'm sorry. I will never do this again. Thank you for educating me. I'm deleting the video. Let this just like in a brief moment, like just let me just say everyone has transphobia. Like you have to undo it. You can't just be like, I'm not transphobic. The trans people are transphobic. You're transphobic. Like just deal with it and make it better.
On the other hand, you might not have cis people in mind at all when you make your content, which is a totally valid and admirable approach. Who are you making videos for?
It's a mixed bag because I have a lot of Black, trans, and non-binary people follow me. So like a lot of my content is for them, but it is also for people of other races. But I do sometimes tend to talk about things that also include race because again, like I'm Caribbean. So a lot of my stuff will be around the fact that I'm Black and Caribbean because a lot of Black and Caribbean followers will be able to relate to that. And some of my content is also for musicians because I have a lot of producers, singers, and other types of artists follow me. And sometimes I might like duet my music and add like music on top of it. So it is a mixed bag, honestly.
We are all complex beings who occupy multiple different and intersecting identities, and we all deserve spaces that are just for us and for our people. If people want to hang out, listen, and learn, that's great. If not, whatever. Who are your videos for?
Well, primarily for me, honestly. That I make those videos again as a form of self-expression, and I always wanted to like make that very clear for myself. Is like as much as I do feel a responsibility to, whenever I'm talking about transness as a collective experience, be as inclusive and as responsible in the way that I communicate it. Ultimately, the reason that, for example, I refuse to advertise on TikTok or use it as a professional platform and instead of just for myself is because I need that space for that kind of discovery. It's what it started as. It was a space where I could communicate like, hey, I'm about to start HRT and I have all those feelings about it, or I am struggling with my thoughts and feelings around passing, and I need people to communicate what they're feeling so that I can, so that we can have a dialogue about it and I can make my own mind. So I make most of my videos thinking about what I need to hear in that moment. And it has become, I've realized that a lot of people that feel the same way or see themselves in that experience relate to that and see them as empowering.
This is a problem I've had a lot. I often think so hard about what sort of content would work well in the algorithm or what language I could use to change people's minds that I often forget to make art for myself. One of the other big existential issues about making pro-trans content on TikTok is that you never know if your viewers are taking it seriously. People might be liking your videos and commenting positive things on them, even claiming to be learning a lot from you. But there's also no mechanism of accountability for that learning. There are no quizzes or final exams in real life. Someone can watch your videos and then go on to do nothing, to take no actions, to change nothing fundamental about their worldview. Or worse, if their only source of pro-trans media is on social media, they might decouple what's happening to trans people from actual reality.
One of the things that I find very discouraging of the entire experience in TikTok is how many people engage with social media of this type or content of this type as pure entertainment, and it's kind of that is something that was a very hard pill to swallow, that even when you're doing what you perceive as a form of activism, when what you're trying to do is raise awareness of something and you're trying to really create an impact so that people mobilize, 90% of your audience is not going to. 90% of your audience is going to see this and engage with it as either rage content, to enrage themselves, to feel this emotional reaction that triggers them enough to be kind of worried about it and to feel like they have to post something about it, but not enough to actually change any of their behavior. Or they see it as pure entertainment because that's, seeing a trans person cry about their own pain and experience in itself can be entertaining for some people. And I feel like that's something that is very dark about social media and about TikTok specifically, is that a lot of this, I feel like sometimes because we as creators engage with it more actively, we forget that a lot of our audience is not engaging in that same way, right? And the apathy that we receive from them can be shocking at times. Talking about, there's kids right now in Florida who are losing access to medicine that is preventing them from taking their lives, and seeing them be like treated as if it was just TikTok drama that we're talking about, and respond and comment in the comment sections as if what we're saying is not having a real impact in people's lives. It's kind of a really rude way of realizing how inhuman humanity can be, and how dehumanizing the experience of social media can be.
Even if most people ignore trans issues or don't take them seriously enough, fortunately, there do seem to be people who are genuinely willing to learn. And for those people, lots of creators are happy to help teach you.
Yeah, like if someone is genuinely open to learn and have a genuine conversation rather than they just want to challenge me whenever I open my mouth, I'm always happy to talk. I'm always happy to have debate. Like obviously if the mood's there, but I'm always happy to have debates and talk to people and listen from their point of view, because the way I see it is that even if you may not like someone or what they like what they stand for, people don't want to admit it, but you can potentially learn something from them. So like I'm always open to listening to people, but if you're just gonna stand there and be like, well, no, because XY chromosomes and blah blah blah, and you have to take hormones like you're a man, it's like you're not trying to debate, you're trying to argue with me. It's two extremely different things. But if you're a person willing to have a conversation and willing to listen, I'm always willing to have that conversation with you.
Even so, I can't help but interrogate my own role as a white, educated, and well-spoken, quote-unquote, content creator who cis people listen to in order to learn about trans issues. How am I encouraging cis people to adopt a view of the trans community that isn't monolithic, or that focuses on broader systemic issues and intersectionality, rather than the trans drama of the week, if that's even something cis people need even concern themselves about? As someone who now does trans advocacy work professionally, Maybe very much acknowledges this discrepancy and even uses it to her advantage.
One of the first things I say in almost all of my trainings, if not all of my trainings, is I'm obviously just one person. I can't speak on behalf of all trans and non-binary people. And I am one white, thin, non-disabled, cute person who gets away with a lot of things because of those privileges and benefits from them. And I'm like, I have a lot of knowledge and research and community that surrounds me and inform these conversations. But I like to start with being like, I am just coming from my own perspective. So people know what they're getting. I name myself as like, I am a resource. I am not the trans experience. Too many people follow me and they're like, oh my gosh, I know everything about being trans. And it's like, first of all, you don't know everything about me. Like I said before, like I keep things off of social media. I have my boundaries. I have my things that I talk about that other people don't know. And second of all, I'm a very limited scope of what it means to be trans. I'm a pretty unique situation where I've held a lot of different labels to describe my experience. But I also do feel like my identity has been at a fixed point and I've just used different language to talk about it. So like I am just like a very, very tiny sliver of this entire community.
Maybe is really careful about using her position of privilege as leverage, which can serve as a great model for trans people who do want to build a platform, online or otherwise, to do this kind of educational labor.
Right. And that's where my cuteness, I name myself as cute and I use it and I know how to leverage that shit because I know in my position as an educator, I know that often I am the first time somebody's going to like a trans person. I'm usually the first time somebody's met or talked to or heard from a trans person, but it's often that they've only met trans people when they're in crisis or when they're like not getting their needs met or they're demanding things. And it's funny because whenever somebody says like trans people are always like yelling about whatever, blah, 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 I'm like, why are you only listening when we yell? Like whenever I get comments that like trans people are always complaining on social media, I'm like, the algorithm shows you what you want to see, babe. You can find the videos of me saying nice things about people and the videos about me living my life and just like talking about my dating history, but you're finding the places where I'm complaining because you like complaining.
It always comes back to the algorithm, doesn't it? This leads us to an even bigger question, because it's obviously not just cis people who are consuming trans content. I think having this online social infrastructure for trans people to find each other is amazing, and I wouldn't give it up for the world. I was able to successfully transition because I was able to find creators who I could model my own transition after, which is my roundabout way of saying that Natalie Wynn helped crack my egg. I would be nothing without the sexy online communist cat girls. And yet, I still have to be skeptical about what online spaces, especially ones like the ones I find on TikTok, are doing to our communities and our souls. I don't want to get into specifics here, but on a bad week, the online discourse can get so toxic, like simultaneously frivolous and incredibly damaging. Conversations about non-binary trans people versus binary trans people, whatever the hell that means, the validity of certain dating preferences, lesbophobia run amok, it can all make you wonder, is the trans community just like this? Or is there something about social media that brings out the worst in us? Or worse, is actively making us worse? You can see the toxicity online reflected in how creators like Lauren get treated by their own fans.
I just wish that I feel like sometimes my followers almost want to mess with my bread by leaving snarky comments on sponsored posts when it's like, I need to make a living so that I can dance around on camera for you. So I can be your little court jester. Why are you trying to shit on this when this is my only stream of income?
Lauren is in the unenviable position of having lots of leftist, anti-capitalist trans fans who resent the fact that she takes money from brands.
I'm not advertising products that I wouldn't use myself or that I don't think would be good for you. I'm not advertising a skinny tea. I advertise a face serum. It's very sad that people can't always support you in your ability to survive and hopefully thrive. And I just wish that people had more compassion for especially TikTok creators that belong to different marginalized identities who are getting paid to be there. Just let them get paid. If you don't like it, you can always scroll on. But, sitting there and watching the duration of the video and maybe giving it a like and a save will always help us. It's always helpful. I just wish that people didn't see certain ways of participating in capitalism as what's the word I'm looking for? As distasteful when they're not, when just making room for an ad every now and then isn't going to hurt you, but it's going to allow me to pay my rent. So if you've got something to say, maybe just keep it to yourself. And I think that it's an unfortunate animosity that comes with being a content creator who earns their living exclusively off of it.
You can absolutely do a leftist critique of the influencer economy, the commodification of the self, and all that good Marxist stuff we love on the show. But hurling those insults on individual creators, especially marginalized ones who probably fought tooth and nail to get into that position, is not helpful. And it's kind of wild that we see people like Lauren, a trans woman whose only source of income is now from influencing, being dragged online and being threatened with having it all taken away from her. Like we mentioned before, Lauren only works with brands whose values she trusts. But because we've decided that women and trans people are just okay to harass no holds barred, people make a lot of false equivalencies between her and the owning class. Where does the capitalist critique end, and where do the internalized misogyny and internalized transphobia begin?
It's almost like leftists want to lay the same criticism on a transgender content creator who's saying this is a great moisturizer in the same way that they might a wealth advisor at freaking, Goldman Sachs, whatever. It's not the same thing. It's complicated at the end of the day. People can have their opinions if they want to have their opinions, but it's not going to stop me from continuing down this path, working with brands that I enjoy myself and carving out a living in a way that isn't going to be appealing to every single leftist. But that's okay, because we are nowhere near getting to a place where everybody's just taken care of by our governments. And in the meantime, I'm going to make a living in the best way that feels right for my lifestyle. And this feels great for my lifestyle. So there's my little defense. I decided I needed to get defensive to wrap this up.
You're just trying to live in capitalism, baby. Like we've established, TikTok profits by making its users angry, and queer and trans people aren't immune to this effect. There's a great video essay by Lily Alexander titled "Why is Queer Discourse So Toxic?" that inspired my thinking here. If your primary connection to the trans community is TikTok, or really any internet medium, that means your primary trans space is one that makes you angry and depressed, which of course is going to have a lasting impact on us. In my last episode, I talked about how trans people are deeply spiritual beings. Trans people are called to make art, to educate, to heal, because our transcestors are calling upon us to improve the world. Most of my guests this month didn't intend to become educators when they first downloaded TikTok, but were instead pulled into it. Fun fact, I downloaded TikTok to make daily dance videos, and look at me now. I make video essays, the lowest form of content. I think it's beautiful that trans people create art about their experiences, but I also think that this good impulse can be corrupted when that art is being made and distributed on a capitalist platform like TikTok. And we can't just give up on online spaces entirely, because lots of people can't help but rely on the internet for their queer community, whether it's because they're disabled or not able to pay to get into IRL spaces and need something cheap or free. Online spaces are a necessary part of how we engage with each other, which makes it all the more imperative that we make those spaces as safe and as awesome and as non-toxic as we can. I asked my guests one other big question with regards to online content creation and online trans communities. Is TikTok good for intra-community dialogue? In other words, if you're trans and you're trying to advance the discourse or otherwise make a positive impact on your community, is TikTok a good place to do that? The answer is going to be inherently complex with lots of pros and cons. Some had more positive things to say, like Azrael, who finds the app to be a better alternative to what we had before.
I'd say so, yeah, because let's look at other platforms, for example. Instagram is a no-go because Instagram is just basically it's creators that are like already up there with the thousands of millions of followers, where they just pay for promo and that's all you see on your feed. Like you don't even get to see your own followers. So discussions don't happen on Instagram. Instagram is just basically a money pit. That's how I see it. So it's like Instagram's a no-go. Twitter, absolutely not. Because on Twitter, people don't get a chance to speak. It's just, hey, you've done something. Everyone, you have 5 minutes to unfollow this person, cancelled. And it's like, I feel like on Twitter, people don't get a chance to speak, say their piece, whatever. It's just like, wow, did you hear about so-and-so? That's it. Bye. And it feels like high school. Like I finished high school many years ago. I don't need that. Reddit, depending on the side of Reddit you're on, Reddit can be really, really good for conversation as long as you're on the right side.
Getting to see someone's actual face as they're describing their own experiences to you definitely feels a lot more real than just bashing it out in a comment section or in a Twitter thread, which makes TikTok slightly better for genuine, free-form discussion than other non-video based platforms.
I feel like TikTok really works because TikTok is extremely personal. It's a video-based social media app. So everyone's just posting videos. People are posting, what's going on in their life, whether it's good, bad, whatever, just their thoughts. And you get to learn a lot about a person on TikTok. And sometimes, like, I could just say the most random thing. And to me, it's random. But then someone will be like, oh, I didn't know that. Can you please explain more? And open for discussion like so, because it does happen. So I think TikTok is really, really good for discussion and conversation, honestly.
Others are a bit more skeptical of the platform and acknowledge its limitations at building healthy, fair communities.
I definitely, I think it's okay to have conflicting feelings about social media and specifically TikTok as a platform. TikTok has been really great for a lot of us, I think, because it has allowed us to encounter these spaces where our voices can be heard by so many people, where we can share experiences and communicate and connect with others. I met you through TikTok. I met so many of my actual real life friends through it. There is a lot of potential in the platform that has this massive reach, for community building and organizing and being able to pass the knowledge that has been accumulated through the decades in the community through this oral tradition. I see TikTok kind of as this, as this plaza space, in the Greek tradition of like someone comes and talks about their experience and people are there to listen and learn, right? And it's to me what I think TikTok is really good at doing. The problem with TikTok is that it has a complicated relationship with queerness and marginalized communities in that it both is a space that is kind of inherently queer, and it allows for everyone to communicate their own perspectives and create their own things. But it is also so heavily policed by this, very illogical, very, very harmful censoring system that they have that makes us even deform our language in order to be able to talk about what we are experiencing in a truthful way. I think TikTok is great as a starting point and as a propaganda machine and as a mechanism of communication, but it has its limits, and it also can be a dangerous one if we're not conscious of the limitations of the platform.
Another negative side to the platform is that the way it's set up doesn't encourage healthy behavior or accountability. Shocking, I know, social media encourages toxic behavior, but here's how recommendation media is worse.
Here's the thing that, first of all, especially makes TikTok a bad platform for it. It is so clear if you delete a video, especially if it's doing well at all, the algorithm screws you for a couple of days. So it punishes you on top of it.
Let's say you mess up and you say something hurtful in a video. The right thing to do would be to take down that video, apologize, commit to learning and making amends, and maybe not posting for a while as you make those amends. But as we've established, TikTok rewards controversy and punishes a lack of new content. So even though individual creators might understand that the hit to their numbers is worth it to minimize the harm, at scale, more of us are incentivized to not do that.
I learned that the hard way. I literally took down a video, and the next day I posted a video. I'll remind everyone I have 82,000 followers. Any video I posted that day had something like 10 views in 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So the app punishes you, can punish you for learning, for doing better. And I mean, I think people should be like, well, not having as many views for 2 days is worth not consistently upsetting and invalidating a whole community. But some people don't see it that way.
Combine this with the fact that a lot of the users who aren't creators, aka the people commenting on your videos, often don't have their real face or real name set on the app. So what you get is an environment where there's little to no accountability or responsibility to one another, things that are critical in healthy communities. Creator responsibility is an especially big factor if you're sharing your experience as a trans person navigating the medical system, which many of us attempt to do. At one point, Azrael was using TikTok to share her experience with DIY transition, a method of accessing hormone replacement therapy and other forms of gender-affirming care without the guidance of a doctor.
Yeah, to some extent. I've even had people ask about my transition journey, and I explained why I'm DIYing my hormones and how I came about it. I didn't give resource or anything, so I think that's irresponsible to do so, especially because I have a lot of kids follow me on TikTok as well as adults, so it's a mixed bag. And it's kids are impressionable, especially if they're trans, whatever, they live their parents, they want to transition. It's they are too impressionable for me to give the information, hey, go here and here and here and you'll get your hormones. Because if a child really, really wants something, they're going to find a way to do it. And I don't want to be the reason why someone gets hurt or something, especially because, getting your blood test is important. Knowing exactly what you're doing is important. I'm 32. So for me, it's all right, I'm a grown adult. I know what I'm doing. I've done extensive research. I'm comfortable doing this. So when it comes to educational videos, I still do them to an extent, but I'm extremely careful with what I say and how I put it out.
When doing a DIY transition, which a lot of trans people have to do because of medical gatekeeping and the growing illegalization of transition in my country, it is really important that you know what you're getting yourself into. A 3-minute TikTok video isn't going to cut it, and you should be reading many, many pages of articles and threads from other trans people talking about their experiences before you just jump into something, especially if you're young. Seriously, for real, if you're a young trans person, please do extensive research before starting HRT and go through a doctor if you're able to. They'll be able to check your medical history, monitor your progress with regular blood tests and physicals, and it'll generally be a lot safer. All of this is circling an even bigger question that we've been gesturing toward for a lot of this episode. Who gets to be a trans advocate? We often say that trans people are the experts of their own experiences, which is true. In general, trans people shouldn't let cis people decide for them what counts as transphobic and how to direct their long-term transition goals. But we now live in a world where conceivably any trans person at any stage of their transition process and with any amount of social privilege can get on social media and amass hundreds of thousands of followers, cis and trans alike, claiming to be an expert on trans issues and claiming to be a representative of the community, which, if you haven't guessed already, can be a big problem.
And it also, I think, has a lot of problems when it comes to making people have giving people the impression that they are creating community and that they are creating real, long-lasting, powerful relationships when what they are doing is building an audience, And I think that's something that is important to be mindful of. I think the nature of parasocial relationships is something that we have to constantly be questioning, because it can, in my mind, be a very poor substitute for real community and real engagement with people in your life.
Being 2.5 years into the pandemic, which cracked a lot of trans eggs, we now have a lot of people who transitioned less than 2 years ago who have stepped up to the plate of TikTok trans advocacy, which I, of course, have mixed feelings about.
Especially because TikTok has this particular culture where a lot of trans people speaking to each other are trans babies. We all transition less, like, you're not included in this because you transitioned a little bit earlier in that, but so many of us transitioned during the pandemic, because I think the pandemic kind of guided us through a space where we could self-reflect like that. But because of that, we are all very inexperienced with the actual community. We've only known of it through our experiences online, in forums, or through watching influencers, or to learning about it through discourse and activist language and spaces. And in reality, there's a lot more complexity to the community that you only get when you are actually there. You're working directly with people that come from very different backgrounds than you, and you understand the challenges that they are facing. Because people who are and have the time to constantly create TikToks and who have that skill to do it well enough to get notoriety, we are all very similar. And I think that sometimes that makes it a really dangerous echo chamber within our own community, where trans people who all have very similar experiences, ways of thinking, and ways of communicating are only speaking to each other without reaching out to people who have been maintaining the community and taking care of it for much longer than we have been here.
It's not uncommon to see privileged trans creators using drama to build clout or using their platform as a weapon against smaller creators or those who are more marginalized than them. Meanwhile, offline trans people are out here doing the real work that helps our community.
Well, and it's also very depersonalizing in many ways. There's this phenomenon in social media, which is, I think it's an important one, of accountability, right? We talk about how we were talking about how TikTok polices language, but a lot of the policing that happens within the same communities. It's not the app doing it, but it is the people that are involved in the community who police each other. We are all trying, and I'm not gonna be here saying that cancel culture is a problem, because I don't even believe in cancel culture in that way, but I do believe that there is certain dehumanization that happens in social media when we're expecting everyone to have the same knowledge and ability to express themselves that we do, or to be completely in the know about what is the most sensitive, inclusive, and appropriate language to use when talking about an experience. And I think that is a very unrealistic expectation to have of people constantly. I have a lot more respect for a person who is imperfect in their communication, but who is active in trying to protect their community, and who is, going to taking people who are living in the street right now and housing them, or bringing groceries to someone who might not be able to afford them that week, or taking care of someone who is having problems with their family and they just got kicked out, and they're bringing them in and they're like taking care of them, even if they are not perfect at addressing if they're, the right way of speaking as a trans person on the internet.
It definitely speaks to the level of entitlement of white trans people that they can attract a few 100,000 followers and claim that they're doing so much for the community, using their advocacy as a shield against criticism.
I've heard creators being like, I've done so much for the community while using TikTok as their personal blog. And I'm like, yes, but at the end of the day, this is something that you're doing for your own fulfillment. And the community that you are doing so much for is what is allowing you to have this for you. And I think it's a question of being honest and humble with yourselves, but also just, I think it's a lot healthier and it allows you to create much better content when you don't put yourself on a pedestal and don't see it as like, the community needs me. The community will find me out. Not the community doesn't need any of us. The community has existed and will exist because that's the nature of how trans people survive.
At its best, TikTok can be a way for trans people to connect, share their experiences, and learn from one another. But at its worst, it can be just another mechanism of violence by the more privileged among us against the less privileged among us, which can be incredibly alienating and disempowering to trans creators of diverse backgrounds, like Lucy, a trans Latina who's unfortunately used to having to integrate into communities where she doesn't feel welcome.
I think I have a perspective that not many people have as someone who is not only a trans person, but also I'm an immigrant. I've lived in, 3 different countries, and just many others. I had the chance to kind of experience cultural shock and having to integrate the communities and self-reflect about my place in them since I was very young. I've also lived in poverty, and I've also had nothing at some point, and I've also had experience of having to immigrate to a completely different country and see what it is like to be otherized. So, and now, after coming out, I kind of found myself in a very difficult position through family abandonment and economic marginalization. And because of that, my experience was not as similar to a lot of the trans creators that I see have a lot of attention. But somehow I still found myself in pair with the same group of people. And I feel that because of that, some of the things that I'm saying sound very kind of innovating to them or something. Like I've heard a lot of people saying like, yeah, I've never heard this perspective before. And to me, like, that's shocking because it's like, I am repeating things that my mentors have taught me. I'm repeating things that I've heard from the community that has nurtured that vision of the world. And things that, like, as a Latina and a person that has engaged with activism for a way longer time than I engage with trans activism, I'm just aware of,
Of course, racism in the trans community is nothing new. White queer people have been speaking over queer people of color for generations. The only thing that's new is an online landscape that incentivizes everyone to become a creator. If you look at the UI of TikTok, or any app really, everything about the app is telling you to make a video. The create button is constantly at the middle of the page, and the editing tools are incredibly easy and intuitive. When you reply to a comment, you have the option of giving a video reply. And if you can't already stitch or duet a video, you can always screen grab a video and critique it from there using the green screen video feature. Go ahead, says the social media company that profits off the videos you make for them for free. Join the conversation. But perhaps not everyone should join the conversation.
I don't want every trans person to be an advocate. I don't want all of us, because too many people aren't doing the listening part and they're just doing it from their own perspectives. And that's not beneficial to anyone, especially when that's white trans people doing it from our own perspectives and not considering intersectionality and the multiplicities of experience and identity that are out there. The reason I'm an advocate and the reason I'm a good advocate is because I listen a lot. I listen to community, I gather information, and I figure out what people need and what people need other people to know. And I'm pretty good at distilling that information. I mean, my degree and my whole background is storytelling and being able to deliver a message to an audience. And I use that, that's part of how I navigate everything that I do.
Instead of being seduced by the temptation by corporations to post everything we think online, maybe we should just leave advocacy and education to the experts.
And I've had conversations with other actors, other trans actors, who are like, you're so outspoken, like you're so good at what you're doing. I'm so sorry that I'm not doing that same work with you. And I turn around and I'm like, sweetie, honey, I do it so you don't have to. I do it because I'm good at it and I know how to, and I like doing it. And my greatest joy is knowing that you don't have to do it and you don't feel pressured to do it because I've got it.
Now more than ever, we need to be listening to the most marginalized voices in society. But thanks to algorithmic oppression like what we see on TikTok and the incentivization of our most toxic behavior, that's not what's happening. The promise of the internet was a democratizing power shift that would connect the world and allow the marginalized in society to find one another and build power. The internet was supposed to let us hold the microphone for once. But since the internet is controlled by capitalists who structure our spaces in ways that incentivize infighting, fractionalization, and individual profit over the political needs of communities, what we have is a toxic online culture. And now every social media app is moving from a social graph model, where the content we see is dictated by us, to a recommendation algorithm-based model, where platforms decide what we see. And because of that, our voices are actually more suppressed and marginalized than they were before. Our government leaders are failing us, either because they're actively malicious towards us by instituting anti-sex work policies like FOSTA and SESTA, or by being so out of touch and ignorant to the scope of the problem that they don't even know where to begin. We need something better. We deserve a fair and democratic internet. We deserve safe communities, and we deserve the opportunity to build real political power. Luckily, there is some hope, and we can fight for a better internet and a better world. While I was writing this episode, the White House released a blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights, which included language that addressed algorithmic discrimination, plus some other items like data privacy and being clear explanations as to why an automated system is being used, which could help a lot with things like shadow banning, where accounts lose viewers or drop off entirely without any explanation. None of the language in this blueprint is binding, but it's a promising start that some people are thinking about these sort of things. Also, creators of color deserve to know the policies that are currently affecting them. TakeCreativeControl.org is a collective of creators and creator-focused advocates who are working to educate online content creators on how to effectively share, protect, and monetize their work in the era of digital discrimination. I'm also going to put in the show notes a bunch of other readings that informed my thinking for this episode, including a class by my TikTok mutual, Dr. Casey Feisler, all about tech ethics and policy, a class that is entirely composed of TikTok videos. Casey, if you're listening to this, congrats on tenure. It's also incumbent on all of us to cultivate a positive environment on our social media platforms, imagine a better future for ourselves, and potentially logging off and touching grass when we need to. Maybe we can unionize the girlies.
Do they realize how many of their trends are set by marginalized communities? Like the Black community, the queer community. So many things on that app are developed by marginalized people, and then cis people go and take them and, make a bunch of money off of the creators fund with them, which makes me... Do they recognize how harm their platform would be if a bunch of marginalized people just were like, goodbye all at once? Or do they really honestly think that there's absolutely no way that that could ever happen?
We do have one example of what not to do, and that's to ignore the intersections among us. Earlier in 2022, there was a pretty significant online movement to call attention to the silencing of LGBTQ voices on TikTok by its algorithm. And while the movement was very much well-intentioned, it was also a complete disaster because of its failure to be anti-racist.
There is this thing that they were doing called the Pride Out, where it was going to be all these people duetting these multiple videos about how transgender voices were being silenced on the app. And they were like, there'll be a gesture. All you have to do is copy the gesture and post your video. The gesture they chose was the gesture that is for missing Indigenous women, children, and Two-Spirit people. And
The fucking red palm.
yeah, the red palm. Well, they didn't use a red palm, but they, it was the palm over the mouth. And the whole thing felt as shit, as it should have. Like within hours, people were like, could you not? And everyone, had to take down their videos.
Extremely disappointing, and further proof that maybe not everyone should be an advocate. And perhaps the most radical thing we can do, besides fighting for policy change and calling attention to the issue of algorithmic suppression, is to imagine what a better online experience could be. What TikTok could be is a place where creators can put themselves before their content.
Even the best of us have our off days where we're like, yeah, no, I can't handle this today. And whenever that happens to me, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to come off TikTok. I'm just going to play some games or make some music or whatever. And I feel good a few hours later. Like I might even take a few days off from making content. And people will message me like, hey, like, Azrael, you're okay? Like, I haven't seen you online. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm taking a few days to myself. And that's something we need to always remember, especially if, we are not cis-het people. Like, we are just bound to deal with this nonsense. And it's okay to remember, maybe I don't need to post every day. Maybe I don't need to try and be this voice every single day. And like, I get it. Like, the world's a horrible place. Things always happen. Like, trust me, I'm Black and trans. I get it. But also, we need to realize that putting ourselves first is extremely important, because if I don't put myself first and I find that I'm crashing and burning, then what?
What TikTok could be is a place for real dialogue and community accountability, where creators are working hard every day to cultivate that environment in their videos.
Because I've made a number of faux pas with the disabled community. And I think it's so, and here's the thing, like, look at me, I'm still here. I wasn't canceled because I got the message when I did not know that. Thank you for teaching me. I will never do this again. And in some cases, like, I am removing this, like, like, especially as being white, like, a lot of our instant reaction is this fragility. And I even get it for a moment when those moments happen. I'm like, but, like, I don't type it, but in my brain goes, but. And then I sit down and I go, who knows that experience more than me is a disabled person. Just like how I tell people, you can't necessarily understand my trans experience, and you're going to have to take my word for it.
What TikTok could be is a stepping stone to actually materially helping marginalized people, not just posting about how we should help them.
When I put out a beat that I made, a lot of artists followed me, and a lot of them would be like, hey, how much do you charge for beats? I'm working on the EP. I want you to help me make it, blah, blah, blah. And I even had someone like buy the beat, which was such a huge thing for me because I've never sold a beat before. Like, they bought it and they wrote a song to it and said like, yeah, they're going to go in studio and record it and pull it on Spotify, Apple Music and all that stuff. And it's like, they're not a huge artist by any means, but it was just a huge thing for me because many people that make beats don't get to sell beats. Like, we just make beats for years and years and years and nothing comes of it. So that was a big thing for me, and I was really, really happy, and I was eternally grateful.
Because I was able to create that platform and connect with so many people, eventually I found this job that I'm working on now as the social media manager for the Transgender Health and Wellness Center, which is allowing me to have a lot more direct contact with the community and do things that impact them a little bit more materially,
It's cool that I get to make my career out of this. It's cool that I get to meet so many fabulous people that I may not have been able to meet otherwise. The positives have far outweighed the negatives of being a creator on TikTok. And even though maybe growing will continue to be a bit more of a challenge, especially since I'm not a post 6 times a day kind of girly, I'm very thankful for it, as much as it's a pain in my ass as well.
When I was acting in New York, sometimes I would book gigs through social media. So like social media in general, like, is a place where I've been known and been able to. Actually, that's probably what it is. My favorite thing that I've done with social media was when I had a much smaller platform and was pre-TikTok, actually. A play that I was in New York, Opening night, when the reviews came out, I was misgendered in every single review of the show, and I made an Instagram post about it. And then Broadway World picked it up, and then Playbill picked it up and did an interview with me, and like I was able to turn a bad thing into a teachable moment and get support from folks and make it a thing that folks could talk about and folks could know about.
And finally, what TikTok could be is a place to see trans joy. A place where we can hold each other accountable, sure, but also a place where we can hold each other close.
Me existing is a political act at this point, right? Like, the way that we exist is politicized. The people who follow me, or did follow me when I was like heavily making educational content and doing very 101 kind of conversations on TikTok, if they're gonna unfollow me, they're gonna unfollow me. But if you followed me because you didn't know enough about trans people and you didn't know enough trans people and you wanted to have more trans people on your feed, seeing me really embrace my joy and my passion and what I love is just a different kind of education for you. It's watching somebody not have to cater to what you want them to do and just watching somebody be themselves. And like, that's what social media, I think, should look like, you know, like should prioritize.
I have a saying, if you could smile once a day, it would be okay. And I just want to get to the point where I'm just like, I've made it. I've done it. I've done it. So yeah, TikTok has definitely helped me a lot, honestly.
Hi. Thanks so much for listening to this very, very long episode. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to us on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. It helps us with the almighty algorithm, capital A, if you can leave us a review and share this episode with a few people who might like it. If you really like what you heard, consider becoming a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/rule63, where you can get access to bonus content. Like I mentioned at the mid-roll, every month Danny and I do a Q&A live stream where you get to chat with us directly. Also, up on Patreon right now are the full, uncut interviews with everyone you heard from this episode. That's 6 podcast episodes for the price of a cup of coffee. Here's a preview of what you might be missing if you don't. How do you practice self-care, Marla?
I don't. I've had this question so many times and I'm like, I should try.
That worked out because like I lost all the weight, then I was putting the weight back and I was really confused. I was like, why am I getting so much weight? And then someone was like to me, it's like, you're on hormones, like you're most likely going to gain weight because of it. And they were like, look where the fat's going. I was like, oh, I was like, well then, I guess it works out.
So you're thick, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
God bless that estrogen. Gotta love that subcutaneous fat.
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
For saying absolutely nothing. You deserve all the followers. And like, I'm just like, here's a lipstick, everybody. You know what I mean? It's like,
do amazing work. And of course, don't forget to follow all 5 of our gorgeous guests over on TikTok and other social media. All their info is in the show notes. I especially want to highlight Azrael's music as well as Azrael and Marla's transition care funds, which you can donate to using the GoFundMe links in the show notes. Okay, that's all for now. I will see you all next month for another episode of Rule 63, where we're going to be talking about building political power. Alrighty then. Bye!